Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating Christian devotional by Pastor Strong. It does something pretty unique. It bridges ancient biblical concepts of wealth with very modern economic realities. We're talking everything from the silent drain of inflation on your wallet all the way to the massive philanthropy of modern billionaires. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll hit two types of treasures: the vulnerability of ancient wealth, modern wealth eaters, investing versus speculating, this idea of the naked donation, and finally, everyday financial stewardship. Let's get right into it. Section 1. Two types of treasures: earthly anxieties versus heavenly purpose. The whole foundation of this devotional anchors on that famous passage from Matthew. You know the one: don't store up treasures on earth, store them in heaven. The core idea here is that earthly wealth carries this massive psychological weight. It can so easily become an idol that just breeds tension and anxiety. But if you shift your mindset from hoarding to purposeful allocation, using that wealth generously for a higher spiritual purpose, you're actually creating secure, heavenly resources. Moving on to Section 2, the vulnerability of ancient wealth: moths, mice, and thieves. To really grasp the weight of this ancient text, we have to remember how wealth was actually measured back then. It wasn't digital, it was physical commodities. Your best assets? Fine wool clothing, which, unfortunately, happens to be a moth's absolute favorite meal. Broader wealth was measured in grain stored in barns, constantly targeted by rats and insects. Think about that. Back then, your net worth was literally on the menu. Pastor Strong points out a brilliant linguistic detail here. In the original Greek text, the word translated as decay or rust literally translates to eat. Pests literally consumed ancient fortunes. Imagine waking up to find out a swarm of locusts had literally eaten your savings account overnight. Crazy, right? So to avoid that, people would take their non-perishable valuables and just bury them in the dirt. It was essentially the ancient safe deposit box. But as you can guess, even that wasn't 100% secure from a determined thief with a shovel. The core premise here is super clear. No earthly wealth is ever perfectly safe. Which brings us to Section 3, the modern wealth eaters: inflation's invisible bite. Let's fast forward to the present day. We obviously aren't worrying about rats eating our digital bank balances, but we do have a modern invisible equivalent. Say you put $1 million in the bank, earning a 1.5% interest rate. Over a year, you make 15 grand. Sounds okay, right? But if inflation is running over 2%, your money is actively losing purchasing power. You're silently taking a loss without touching a dime. So the mechanism changed from physical bugs to macroeconomics, but the universal problem remains exactly the same. Our wealth is still being eaten. The anxiety of trying to maintain earthly wealth hasn't disappeared at all. It's just been modernized. All right, Section 4, investing versus speculating, the search for security. To combat this modern inflation, people naturally turn to the financial markets. But the devotional draws a very sharp moral line between two distinct mindsets. On one side, you have true investing, backing a real sustainable company. That brings a steady peace of mind. On the other side, you have speculating. This is basically gambling on daily numbers or volatile ETFs. And because it totally lacks a connection to a tangible operation, it inherently raises your blood pressure. The source warns that highly leveraged speculation actually strips away your rationality. When the market inevitably turns, those who are just gambling on price swings face massive financial ruin. It's a massive stress trap, and it perfectly mirrors the earthly anxieties mentioned in those ancient texts we talked about earlier. Let's look at Section 5, the naked donation concept, giving it all away. So how do you completely solve the anxiety of hoarding all this wealth? Well, the devotional introduces a radical philanthropic concept known in Chinese as lujian, or naked donation. It represents the absolute ultimate act of leaving no personal wealth behind. You're converting earthly wealth into a purposeful legacy by donating it all to charitable foundations. And to be super clear here, this isn't just tossing spare change into a charity bucket. We're talking about individuals committing to give away 98 to 99% of their entire net worth to causes aimed at improving medicine, eradicating poverty, and sharing resources globally. It is a massive commitment. And there's actually a rich historical legacy of this exact concept in practice. The pastor traces a line from early industrial titans like Nobel, the inventor of dynamite, and magnates like Rockefeller and Carnegie, all the way to modern figures like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates. Despite their massive earthly wealth, they embraced this philosophy to create a lasting heavenly impact. Finally, we arrive at Section 6, Everyday Financial Stewardship, the 4 practical steps. Now, you definitely don't need to be a global billionaire to put this into practice. The explainer scales these grand concepts down to 4 practical habits for everyday life: having a steady job for income, tithing honestly, managing your remaining resources smartly, and maintaining a generous spirit. Let's look at that first step, a steady job. It translates to the workplace in some very specific ways. It means your work is ethical and legal. It means expressing genuine passion rather than just clocking in and zoning out. It means refusing to cut corners and actively going out of your way to diligently help your colleagues succeed. This ancient proverb from the text reminds us that being a faithful manager of resources aligns perfectly with divine wisdom. It's really all about balancing your saving and spending intelligently without ever becoming a slave to the money itself. And beautifully, the source reminds us that true generosity isn't just financial. Sometimes, in our desire to be frugal, we accidentally close off our hearts. But generosity can be a simple pat on the shoulder, a warm greeting, or a sincere hug. Even if your budget is super tight, you never have to withhold these everyday acts of human connection. As we wrap up this explainer on Pastor Strong's message, consider this final thought. Look at the resources you have today. Is your wealth slowly being eaten away by the anxieties and inflations of the world, or are you actively investing it into a legacy that truly lasts?